Short sale negotiation. Title report. Objectives. The objectives of this chapter are to know the use of each of the short sale documents, understand title reports from the short sale vantage point, be able to develop an effective discount strategy, and quickly set aside transactions with no potential. First of all, before continuing with the flowchart, let's talk about a few considerations. The flowchart used in this online class presents the order of actions in logical sequence. As often in life, the exception makes the rule. Sometimes you need to act in a different sequence. What is important is to be flexible. Adjust to the specific transaction. Let's continue with the short sale flowchart. All the short sale documents are properly completed. Now it is time to start negotiations. Short sale document use. Authorization to enter property. This document is mostly for personal safety and to control access to the property. Listing agents do not really need this document. Listing agreements include access. Escrow service relationship. An absolutely critical factor for short sales is the right escrow service connection. Much depends on escrow. The escrow officer should be knowledgeable, comfortable, and active in short payoff transactions. Authorization to release payoff. It is good to have it in case it is needed. Only some lenders may request it. Authorization to release information. No institutional lender will talk to a third party negotiating a short sale without written authorization from the seller. This document is absolutely mandatory. Purchase and sale agreement. Without a purchase and sale agreement, there is no transaction. In addition, most creditors taking a discount will want to see the purchase and sale agreement. To open an escrow, a purchase and sale agreement is mandatory. Earnest money. Along with a purchase and sale agreement, exchange of consideration is mandatory to open an escrow. Earnest money cash and earnest money promissory notes are consideration. Addendum of understanding. It is a good idea, but not mandatory, to have an addendum of understanding and disclosures as part of the opening of the escrow. That way, in case of disputes, the addendum will be documented at the escrow service. Opening of escrow. Once all the documents are obtained, the first thing a short sale negotiator needs to do is open an escrow. This is a good example of an open escrow request. It is a good idea to start by stating that the transaction will require a short payoff. Also, that the settlement letters needed to close the transaction will be provided by the person negotiating the short sale. This vastly reduces the escrow service workload. Preliminary title report. The first thing the escrow service will do is generate a preliminary title report. It will be referred to as just the title report. This document shows the current title condition of the property, as well as any claims against the seller and the buyer. Sometimes, a lien and encumbrances report is enough. This document, often referred to as an L&E, is basically an incomplete preliminary title report. It shows the title condition of the property, but not any claims against the home buyer or homeowner. It may omit other important matters as well. Not all escrow services like to work with L&Es. This is a good example of a short sale title report. It's packed with encumbrances. Most title reports will be a lot simpler. Let's analyze it. General exceptions. These are the items that will not be covered by a title insurance policy if issued. For the most part, these are possible unrecorded items. Specific items and exceptions. These are items of record that need to be resolved or will not be covered by a title insurance policy if issued. It reads, Specific items and exceptions. Item 6. The most senior lien is an unpaid balance on property taxes. This is owed to the county. Item 7 is a code enforcement city lien. Item 8 is another code enforcement city lien. These first three items are high seniority involuntary liens. Item 9 is the first voluntary lien. It is a first position trust deed attached to the property. It reads, a deed of trust to secure an indebtedness. Within this item, there is an assignment of beneficial interest. That means that the debt was sold to another creditor. Within this item is also an appointment of successor trustee and a notice of default. Item number 10 is a judgment lien. This judgment lien was subordinated to the second trust deed. The concept of subordination plays a large role in short sales. Subordinations. A subordination is an agreement by which an older senior lien becomes junior to a newer junior lien. A senior lien becomes subordinate to a junior lien. In other words, the junior lien becomes senior to the senior lien. The idea of subordinations is to alter the order of payment in case of foreclosure. This is done for multiple reasons. Most reasons are outside of the scope of this class. Item 11 is another trust deed. There are two loans secured by this property. It reads, a deed of trust to secure indebtedness. By looking at the date of the recording, it is evident that this second trust deed is a cash-out second mortgage. The second trust deed was recorded 10 years after the first trust deed. Item 12, the last item, is a notice of violation and possible lien. It reads, notice of housing code violation and possible lien against property. The preliminary title report also has notes. These notes typically refer to claims against the buyer and the seller. Currently opened bankruptcy cases and judgments are exposed here. Note B states, there are no recorded judgments against the buyer. Title report analysis. Existing condition. This line represents time. The left end of the line represents the beginning of time. The right end of the line represents the end of time. The complete continuum represents the length of life of a parcel of land. Land never ceases to exist. For the practical purpose of real estate, the longevity of a property is considered infinite. In a foreclosure, the order of payment is based on seniority. First in time, first in right. For title report purposes, the date of title transfer is the most defining event. The date of transfer is when a buyer officially becomes an owner. The buyer has title over the property, and better yet, obtains a title insurance policy. The evidence of ownership is one of the several types of title deeds. The date of transfer divides encumbrances into two groups. To the left are the non-dischargeables. For practical purposes, non-dischargeables remain perpetually attached to the property. A good example is taxes. To the right are the dischargeables. Dischargeables continually change through time. Dischargeables tend to be debt incurred by the property owner and secured by the property. The non-dischargeables can only foreclose judicially. Depending on the type of encumbrance they are, the dischargeables can foreclose judicially or non-judicially. In order to purchase the property with a small down payment, the homeowner leveraged the purchase with a loan. This first loan will be secured by the property through a first trust deed or a first mortgage. In Georgia, the security instrument can be a security deed. In addition, the homeowner is obligated through a first promissory note. If this property is a primary residence, this debt secured by the property is considered purchase money. This debt was originated along with the purchase of the property and used for purchasing the property. Later, the homeowner obtains a second home loan. This is commonly referred to as a second mortgage. This loan is monetary debt secured by a second trust deed or a second mortgage and obligated through a second promissory note. The debt can also be a HELOC, home equity line of credit. The first two encumbrances are voluntary liens. The second loan is non-purchase money. It was not used to purchase the property. Later, the homeowner gets into a financial dispute. If the individual can't pay, is sued, and loses, there will be legal consequences. By court order, the individual will get a judgment. In most counties in the U.S., the judgments automatically create liens. The lien secures the judgment with the property. The judgment obligates the homeowner. Then the homeowner divorces. As a result of the litigation, now a child support lien is attached to the property. Child support laws vary widely from state to state. Typically, even if faithfully paid, child support judgments follow the parents until the child is 18. If the homeowner gets behind enough with state income taxes, the state will attach an income tax lien to the property. The lien will secure the tax payment by attaching to the property. The tax warrant will obligate the homeowner. State income taxes are not property taxes. They tend to be junior liens. Chances are that if the homeowner has problems with state taxes, most likely they have problems with the IRS too. If this problem grows, the IRS will attach a tax warrant lien to the property. The lien will secure the tax payment by attaching the property. The tax warrant will obligate the homeowner. The IRS has a 120-day redemption period. This means that if there is a foreclosure, the IRS, for a period of 120 days, has the right to pay the successful bidder what was paid at the foreclosure sale and keep the property. If the homeowner defaults on the home loan payment, the creditor will sooner or later record a notice of default, the NOD, or similar document depending on the jurisdiction. The NOD is usually the last item recorded, but has the same seniority as the foreclosing home loan with which it is associated. Often the homeowner will borrow money or even hire a contractor after the NOD is recorded. If this happens, another voluntary or involuntary lien will sooner or later be recorded. This can happen any time until just prior to the sale or foreclosure sale date. These last-minute liens can wreck a short sale negotiation right before closing. It's good to ask the homeowner about the risk of this happening. On the side of the non-dischargeables, the least senior lien tends to be the Homeowners Association, or HOA, if it exists. This is because the HOA is organized before the residential unit is sold. HOA liens, fees, and assessments are high seniority. However, not all, but a good portion of condominium developments are organized such that the HOA dues and other fees are subordinated to the financing. This makes a condominium a lot easier to finance. Home loan creditors always prefer to be as senior as possible. The next highest order of seniority is at the city level. Any city lien or assessment is senior to the HOA. These liens tend to be code violations and assessments. The next and usually highest level of seniority is at the county level. Any county lien is senior to just about everything else. This tends to be property taxes. The highest level of seniority tends to be at the state level. These are the most senior liens. The rights of the state date back to colonial and early republic times. Only a few states have state-level liens affecting real estate sales. The state of Hawaii and the state of Washington have state-level taxes payable with each transfer of title. Discount decisions. Short sale discount decisions are almost entirely based on the consequences of foreclosure. In a foreclosure, the order of payment is seniority-based, which means first in time, first in right. The more senior a lien, the more likely it will get paid in a foreclosure. The less senior, the less likely the lien will get paid in a foreclosure. High seniority local government liens, such as state, county, and city-level liens, do not discount. Why would they? They only charge taxes, are of the highest seniority, and have not lent any money. For them, it is just a matter of waiting. Sooner or later, someone will pay, or they will end up with the property. They have nothing to lose. Neighborhood HOAs are inexpensive and senior. They will not discount. The value of their debt is usually small enough to disregard. Condominium developments are very different. Unsubordinated HOAs are in a very advantageous position. However, they need income to keep up the HOA reserves. In addition, vacant units depreciate the condominium development. Occupied units do not depreciate the condominium complex. If it is because the HOA is owed so much that no one will buy the property, the HOA will eventually discount. Whether or not a creditor in first position discounts depends on the loan-to-value rate of the loan. First mortgages will discount if the property has problems they do not want to deal with, or if the value of the property is lower than the value of the loan. Even in the best of times, the top 20% of the fair market value of a property is very vulnerable. Second mortgages, especially recent, unseasoned ones, almost always have to discount. Subordinated HOAs, despite being senior, are junior to the financing. The chances of their getting paid at a foreclosure sale are low. However, the HOA will remain vested in a property, so they will have certain leverage. Because of the low chances of payment, subordinated HOAs will typically discount. State and federal creditors, such as child support, State Department of Revenue, and IRS, are junior liens. Typically, these creditors do not discount debt. However, these creditors commonly release liens in exchange for some payment. The chances that a very junior lien will ever get paid at a foreclosure sale are so low that they usually will discount quite a bit. They need to get something that makes sense to them. If they do not release their interest, the transaction will not consummate. Most short sales will only involve one or two home loan creditors plus a little bit of taxes. Given the large surge of condo developments, more and more short sales are including HOA negotiations. Most of these HOAs are subordinated to the financing. Short sales involving judgments and private liens are not as common, but they do occur. If they exist, these judgments tend to be junior and of lower value. These liens are usually solvable by short sale or release of lien. However, personal animosities often fog reasoning. For example, in a divorce situation, a spouse may want to punish their ex by disrupting a foreclosure bailout. State income tax and federal tax liens are not as common either, but they happen. The IRS does not discount, but they release liens in exchange for partial payments. Most states have a similar policy. Dealing with the IRS tends to be simpler than dealing with state revenue departments. Child support is enforced at a state level, and it does not discount. If child support is current in payments, usually releasing the lien is not a big deal. If child support is not current, the lien will most often be released in exchange for some payment. The chances of city, county, and state-level property liens discounting debt is next to nil. However, with good manners, legal advice, and excellent negotiation skills, sometimes concessions can be obtained. Short sale situation analysis. As in life, the more complex a problem, the more difficult it is to resolve. If it is too complicated, it may not be worth attempting. However, some of the most fruitful investor short sale transactions come out of resolving these situations. Resolving these takes a lot of negotiation and transaction skills, as well as the goodwill of the secured creditors. Determine the value of the potential reward prior to engaging in something complex. The more creditors there are, the more complex the transaction. Generally speaking, up to 2 loan short sales are very solvable. Most agents and investors do very well with these transactions. Simpler transactions are for agents and investors alike. Complex short sales are for seasoned investors if there is enough profit potential. Sometimes foreclosure is the only solution. Don't waste your time with those. Negotiating with multiple juniors. Every so often, it is necessary to deal with a property with multiple junior liens. The typical scenario is that there are 2 home loans and 2 or 3 junior liens. When it gets to this point, there are usually county and city liens as well. These liens will not discount. To make it a practical example, let's assume that the first home loan is well protected. It won't discount. Typically, in this situation, the second home loan will discount. However, most likely, and this usually happens, the second home loan creditor will require that all the other junior liens together get a total of only $1,000 or similar low amount. This is insufficient payment. When this happens, it can be an unworkable situation. This kind of transaction requires full cooperation. If not, foreclosure is the only remedy. If creditors are cooperative, the solution is to settle junior creditors individually. That way, they are removed from title. Under these conditions, junior creditors can't be on the HUD-1. The key to this is to close as much as possible with all the creditors separately, but almost at the same time. Settling separately with one creditor after the other, much prior to closing, is risky. Chances are that as soon as the buyer is financially committed into the property, the remaining creditors will get tougher and make the buyer pay more than originally agreed. In this kind of transaction, it is best to never lock up any money until the very end. Closing will only happen if everything is perfectly aligned. These kinds of transactions are for experts, employing master escrow officers and using legal counsel. Review. Each short sale document has a specific use. The escrow service is a key participant in a short sale transaction. Preliminary title reports present the existing title condition of a property. The order of payment in a foreclosure is based on seniority. Short sale discount decisions are based on foreclosure consequences. Short sales with multiple juniors are more complex. Sometimes foreclosure is the only solution.